Alright, if you saw the introduction to rebuilding the switch, you know that this is a switch I've received from a client that purchased a repair or refurbish through eBay, through my eBay channel, Navion01. So he sent me both of his switches, driver side and passenger side, and I've done a lot of glue, but I've never seen any that was orange before. So anyway, but this switch is glued back together. This side has two of the regular clips that are still in good shape, but he put glue on them anyway. This one had a clip in good shape, glue on it anyway. The front, the clip is slightly broken, but and I'm assuming that whoever did that thought it was a one-time repair and it's good to go. Nope, there's no permanent repair. So, X-Acto knife, get up under the edge and see if I can break it loose from the glue. Well, this one is coming loose fairly easy. Of course, the dangerous thing is that it'll break the skirt, and then it makes it very difficult to get all that working right again. Then we go to this one. I'm going to go ahead and try to just remove this clip, because with the clip and glue on there both, it just makes it doubly difficult. So I'm going to break off the, it was already broken in the middle. I'm just breaking off the rest of it. I'm fighting the glue to do it. So now, let's see. Okay, that's loose. Let's go to the back. I'm going to try not to break that clip if I can. See if I can just press the glue out. This one's a little easier to get to. Okay. Now on this side, again, try not to break the clip if I can avoid it. I can't tell. The glue's in the way. Okay, I think I've got that one. Let me loosen up the rest of this. Okay. Alright. We got the top off. Here's a light bulb. That's just the light bulb cover. It's missing the center bulb that lights up these switches in the back. It's missing that bulb, not a problem. I'm going to remove all of these bulbs anyway. I don't know if you can see, if the resolution is good enough, but that gasket that's on top of it is just covered in grit and sand and I don't know what all. I mean, but it's just covered in that stuff. And of course, that's part of the problem. That grit and sand gets in there and helps file the contacts. And there's a piece of a broken bulb down inside the switch. That wasn't doing it any good. And then there's two of the contacts. And there's the other two. Have to have 4 on the driver's side. You have to have all those contacts. Oh, there's something else. Oh no, that was already on the desk. That was from that clip that I broke. Alrighty. So if you don't glue it together, how do you put it together? And I'll show you at the very end of the rebuild process, but I use these tiny screws. This is a screw that I commonly find in those skirts, and it's not very big, but that skirt's only 3/16. And so, and plus there's a slight gap between the outside of the skirt and the housing of the switch. And so you put that screw in there and then you tighten it down too tight and it busts the plastic, and there you are. So I'll set these over there for now. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to remove all these bulbs, and I'm just going to cut them off. Get a set of wire cutters, and I'm just going to cut those bulbs off. So I'll get that done. Okay, the bulbs are all off, and this is a riser for the bulb that goes in the back. And I'm going to use the dikes here and just kind of try to get that off without destroying it, because it's good to have. There we go. And so I'll save that for when it goes back together. And there's 2 wires sticking up there that went to the old bulb. I'll cut those off. So, okay, the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to set it in my little soldering vise here so that I can unsolder this circuit board from the switch housing. So, be right back. Okay, I've got it all mounted up in my solder housing. These wires really get in the way, but you just have to put up with it. So what I'm going to do is, there's 3 solder points here for the 3 connections. I'm going to heat it with my soldering iron and then suck the solder out with my solder sucker. And let me see what kind of shape it's in. Oh yeah, it's doing pretty good. Okay, so let me get my soldering iron ready to go here. I'm cleaning the tip a little bit. All right. The wire from the circuit from underneath is poking up through a collet that's in the circuit board, and then there's just a glob of solder on the top of it. So you just heat it pretty good, and with any luck it'll come right apart. But that only happens on a few switches. Most of them require quite a bit of effort to get that board off of there. See the solder I sucked out? There it is. Okay, so you get the idea. I don't think it's going to come loose yet. Let me get the screwdriver here. No, it's not ready to come loose. So I'm going to continue the same process of heating and sucking and putting a little pressure under it and heating and sucking, and so you don't necessarily need to see all that. So I'll get that done and get back to you. If you saw my other video on how to get just the windows working without rebuilding the whole switch, you know that you don't have to do this just to get the windows working. You only need to do this if you want to replace the lights and get everything working and looking new again. Plus, I think because the power that goes to these lights is the same power. Well, I thought that sucker was loose. Oh, it was loose. I guess it's not quite there. There we go. So now you can see inside the switch. Let me get it off of this thing. You can see inside the switch, and that contact is completely fouled. That one's completely fouled. This one's completely fouled, and that one's completely fouled. Now you're probably wondering why these 3 look pretty clean and while the others are badly fouled. Well, the normally closed position of it, there's actually 4 switches in here, and the normally closed just provides a ground. And so these are the ground connections, and these are the hot connections for driving things. But both of them can spark. Also, you see this is melted plastic where they built the switch. They put this copper piece in here and then melted the little plastic tits to hold it all in. But once it's in and all the wire connections are made, it's unnecessary, and it should have been removed because you can see how close it is to this contact, and I think it contributes to the fouling. So I'm going to remove all of this plastic that's real close to the contacts, and it seems to help them to last longer and not fail as quickly. So, all right, so I'm going to set this aside for now, and we're going to focus on the circuit board here, and this is the front. So under here, these are the connectors that are in the back. These are your 3 primary connections, and then of course where the bulbs are. But so what I need to do is I need to remove the solder from the back of this board so I can so I can insert the bulbs. So I bring this back, and it's the same process again. You just heat it and suck the solder out with the solder sucker. Make sure there's no excess solder on there before I start. So okay. There's a residual tiny piece of wire in there from the old bulb, and sometimes that causes a problem getting the hole cleared. I actually have a tiny drill. If I can't do it this way, I can drill it out. Okay, so maybe now you can see the hole behind it. Let's see if I can do this without flashing the camera too bad. So you can see the holes there. So I'll get the solder out of the rest of, there's 6 of them. There's 4 up here on the top, there's 1 in the center, and then there's 1 over here in the corner. So I'll get all that solder removed, and then we'll put new bulbs in. Okay, I've got all the solder removed from those. A couple of the holes need to be cleaned up, and I've got a tiny little twist drill here. You only want to clean them up from this side. If you do it from the other side, when it breaks through the hole, it can push the little copper piece right off the board and ruin it. So you don't want to do that. You don't want to do it from this side. And I just want to open that hole up just a little bit to make sure I can get the, that one looks pretty good. This one looks a little narrow. Okay, and this one here has got a little piece of solder junk in it. Okay, while I'm at it, I'm going to go ahead and open up these holes as well. These are the ones that the wires came through. And just to make sure that they don't have any trouble putting that back together, I'll clean those holes up too. Well, that one's got some gunk in it. Okay, let's try that one again. Oh, I see what's happening. The collet is turning in the board. So that might require a little heat to get that one back. No problem. So the solder has come loose from the collet. The collet is just a word for a little tube. So I'll reheat that. Oh, it didn't reconnect. When it doesn't reconnect like that, I'll always wonder if perhaps the solder that was used was part aluminum. They did that for a while. Maybe they're still doing it. Put in aluminum in solder, and it just doesn't work as well. Okay, I got that reattached real well. All right, so let me put this away. I'll get the bulbs, and we'll put the bulbs in. There's 2 kinds of bulbs you can use. These are 12-volt bulbs, which are the simplest to use because, you know, you just plug them right in where the old ones were. These are cheaper. They work just as well. They're cheaper, but they're 3.5-volt bulbs, so you have to put a load resistor in line. And typically, I put that in this line. This is the primary line. The power comes in on this point here, and you see it goes across. And so in that blank space right there, I add a tiny little 100-watt resistor so I can use these bulbs. I haven't done that in a couple of years. I've gone to these 12. The 12-volt bulbs are a little more expensive, but they're so much easier to work with, and so I do that. So we need 6 of those. Separate out. That's 5. All right. These bulbs are polarized. They have a positive and a negative, and they got to go in just right. When you look at the wires, the long one is the positive. So the hot line, the long one always goes to the hot line. I just happen to know from experience that all the hot lines are on the outside. So as I put these bulbs in, I make sure the long wire is in the outside hole. And then I bend that over to hold in place. And when I get them all in there, we'll solder them, and I'll get them all in and we'll come back. In the reinstalling of the batteries, in the reinstalling of the bulbs, we come to that one that's on the lift. And so we set that on there, like that. And the hot on this one is the one toward the top, so I get that hot one in there. Push that lift piece back in there, and bend the wires over. And then I've got one more that goes down here, and on that one the hot is toward the back. So I put that in there like that, and bend the wires, and we're ready to solder it. Put it in the soldering clamp, and I'm going to solder each one of those wires. Okay, I've got all the wires soldered in there. I'll check them, make sure I don't have any shorts. And now I bend all these wires up where I can get to them, except this one and that one. So I've got one hot and one ground, and I'm going to use that to test the bulbs. All the rest of them I'm going to clip off. I'll clip all these wires off of here. Well, I said I wasn't going to clip that wire off, and then I forgot and clipped it off anyway. Still some glue on that. That's another problem with that glue. It actually got in far enough as to get on the circuit board, and I hope it doesn't interfere with the fit. Well, there's another way to test it, even if I don't have those wires still on there. This is the hot. I can put that in there. This is my 12-volt power supply. So I'll attach the hot to that. And the middle connector is the ground. Uh-oh, where'd my little pin go? Well, we can connect, let's see. Can I connect on that? I think that'll work. All right. So, plug in my 12-volt supply, and there you can see all the lights work. This 12-volt supply is just one of these wall power supplies that, you know, from one of the many products I've had over the years. You notice how the light bled off slowly and is still bleeding off? That's because LEDs work on potential and not on actual voltage, and that potential is still in the transformer in here. So I disconnect and it goes off. So when you have it back in your car after you put it back together, and you turn your car off and the lights slowly bleed off, that's all that's happening, is it's bleeding off the potential that's still in the transformer. So this circuit board is done and ready to go back in the switch. But before we can do that, we've got to clean up the switch. So I wish I could get more of that glue off there. It is really tough. Well, all we can do is work around it. So the first thing I'm going to do is remove that plastic. There's a couple of ways you can do that. I have this old soldering aid that's got kind of a blade on it, and I can get up under the plastic a little bit and kind of pry it up, and it breaks off. You can also use a screwdriver. See, I just wanted to get it away from where that contact is. And then the same on this one. I'll just get up under it and try to pry that off of there. That one's being stubborn. There we go. I don't mind leaving the rest of it in there. I just want to get it away from that contact. Same with this one here. Oh, that one came off real easy. Okay, so we got one here to deal with. There we go. And one more right here. There we go. That one came off in one big chunk. Okay, so now I want to clean the contacts themselves. Again, this is another old soldering aid, and at one time it's had a little steel wool pad on the end, and there's still just enough of that left on the end of that that works real well for cleaning those up, getting them all shiny again. For those of you who maybe just watched the video on how to get your windows working again, where we did this without removing the circuit board, you get a better idea now of what I'm doing. These little metal bars, these are the rocker points for those contacts, and they need to be cleaned up too. Okay, so get some of that other crud in there. Oh. All right, just as an added, I'm going to use this electronic cleaner, and I'm going to spray it in there. And I got this little brush. I'll stick down in there. And this is mostly acetone, and it burns off really quick and leaves little or no residue. So now we look in there, and it's more than clean enough to work. We're good to go. So now what I need to do, I need to straighten up these wires that held the circuit board on. This can really be a difficult job to get all that back, get that in line and get back together. This wire's got a little bit of a chunk of solder on the edge of it. I think that's clean enough. Can you see the configuration I've created? These two go a little further back than that one in the front. So let's see if I can make it work. Okay, didn't work the first time. I'm going to have to clean these up a little bit more, work on the holes on that a little bit more, and see if I can get a looser fit to get it together. Be right back. All right, let's try that again. Oh boy. Okay, got it. Sometimes that doesn't go quite that well. All right. So now put a glob of solder on the top of each one of those. And we're done with the soldering iron. Unplug that. Okay, so you can see that's all done. Now, set that aside. Now we're going to deal with these. And the first thing we're going to do is get a blue towel. Spray some cleaner on it and clean these contacts. One of the things that people have tried over the years in doing this themselves is they've gotten some of that electron lubricant sealer for, it's where you get it, they sell it at the automotive places, and you put it on your wire connections, and it seals the wire connections and keeps the water out of them and keeps your contacts from corroding. And so they tried putting them on these contacts inside the switch. It wouldn't work. In fact, it made things worse. Moisture, I'm not going to say moisture didn't contribute to the problem, but you're not going to stop it by coating these things in that grease. Okay. Now I've got this tiny little polish wheel. You can do this with a little emery cloth just as well. You just hit the top of that contact, kind of polish it up and get the dirt off of it. And so you can use that. I use that little wheel and just touch it. Just real quick. Don't drag it on there, just knock the chunks off of the contact, get rid of the build up of crud that's on there. Okay, one more thing you do. In my last video where I introduced this, we talked about how when the switch isn't working, the tendency is to push on it just as hard as you can, trying to make a contact and get it to work. And what that does is it flattens the switch out, this rocker out a little bit. However, the metal has memory. So I catch it, see how one end's got a rounded end and the other end is square? Using the rounded end, I catch this under there and just gently pull up on it. You can feel it move just a little bit, and the metal memory goes back to where it belongs. If it doesn't move, don't force it. It's already where it needs to be. Okay, that one didn't move much. All the rest of them moved. Okay, so now I got my 4 contacts. They're all clean, polished, and straightened or shaped. So now it's ready to go back in the switch. And this is a trick. There's 2 ways you can do this. You can use needle nose pliers like this, and you grab the contact and you insert it in there so that it lays in the cradle that it came out of. Let me show you. Hold on a second. I've grabbed one of my scrap switches that doesn't have a circuit board on it, so you can see how these things fit in the cradles. So I left that one in there that I put in there. So you grab it by the end and you want to fit it just like that. Whoop, fell out. So you see, okay, so you got a metal bar here and a metal bar there. It's going to go right between those two on every one of them. Okay, it goes right in there. So it's a trick. It's a trick to get it in there. Okay, so that's in there. So the other one, the next one, goes with the rounded part up. The reason for that is you push it one way, the window goes up, you push the other way, it goes down. So that's why the two are reversed. And so that's how they set in there. So you can see that. All right, so we'll take those back out. And push that back over there, and we'll see if we can get all these put in place. So I'll get all these inserted. So I said a minute ago there were two ways to do this. So these are spring-loaded needle nose that are normally open and you squeeze them closed. The other way to do it is with a pair of tweezers like this that are spring-loaded closed and you squeeze them to open. And the nice part about that is you grab the contact and then you have it. You know, you don't have to worry about squeezing it to hold on to it. But both work. Both of these will get them back in place where you want them to be. So I've got that done. I've got all the contacts in there. This is the original gasket with all the dirt and muck on it. And this is one that is fairly clean, that I've already cleaned up. And so I'm going to use this clean one, and I'll clean that one up and put it in the next switch, or toss it in the drawer with the rest of the extras. Check all the buttons. So now we have this thing here to deal with the glue. So I'm going to go ahead and try it and see if it works okay, because it does have those clips still on it, and that'll help it. Okay, the actuators look good. They're not they move up and down easily, and they don't have any junk or melted on the ends. So we stick that in there, and you want to do this evenly across the switch like that. You want to slide it all down at one time, and then you want to hold it in place, because here we go. All right, now we got it. Okay, so these two clips are helping hold it in. This one in the back that's still good is holding it in, and you see here it's a little loose. And that darn glue is in the way of that one coming down as far as it should. The skirt's not coming as low as it should. I'm going to work on that glue a little bit. Okay, I've got that cleaned up a little bit better. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a screw in the rear on this side and in the front on this side. I'm not going to put it on the other side. Every time you pierce that skirt, there's a chance it can break later and have problems. But because there's two good clips, original clips on that side, I'm going to leave that alone. I'm just going to focus on this side. So let me get my drill again. Get a couple of tiny screws. Let me get all this set up. Okay, I got my two little screws there. So I want to press down on this corner, and there we go. Get it seated real good. And then I'm going to come up. I know this is just 3/16 of an inch, so I'm going to try to get in the middle of that, or a little on the high side of it maybe. And with my, now I could continue with this twist drill to go ahead and drill that hole, but I'm just using that to get a start. This is a Harbor Freight Dremel that I'm using as a drill, and I put it in the dent I already started. And you don't want to go too fast with this, because it'll melt its way through instead of drilling, and then you got all that melt to deal with. There's a little bit of melt on the outside. Sometimes it'll come off with my fingernail. Okay. So I get the tiny screw and get it started. Phillips screwdriver. Can you even see that tiny screw? I can't hardly see it. Right, there we go. I got those tiny screws off of Amazon, and I literally typed in the search panel, tiny screw. So you just want to snug that up. You don't want to over tighten it. Over tighten it will distort the shape of the plastic and possibly break it, and then you ruin the skirt and you've pretty much ruined the switch. Okay, we come here to the back, do the same thing. Get it started with this one. That away. Get the drill. Oops. Set it in there. Whoops, whoops. Okay, and the switch is assembled. Those should rock normally, not stick or hang. If they stick or hang or make it or hard to push, something's wrong with the way the contacts were put in place. All of these buttons are working. So this is back together and should be a working switch. So the next step is to test it. Okay, so we're ready to test our switch. I did a video just on testing. Maybe you've already seen that one, but we'll go ahead and show this on this particular switch so we can see if it works. The first thing we're going to do is test in this state right now without touching anything. All of the switches are normally closed and all the normally closed connections are ground. So we're going to measure each one of those grounds to see if that's good. So we connect one end of our meter to the black wire. This is the power and ground connection. We connect it to the black wire of the power and ground. Then we take the other end and we just go, these four wires are the up-down driver, up-down passenger side. And we're going to check, we want to see, put that where you can see it. I hope you can see it. We want to see absolute 0. So we put that on there. So we have a solid ground. So now I'm going to move this connection over to the red wire, and I'm going to start on the brown wire. The brown wire is up on the driver's side. So I hit the up, dead short, hit the down, dead short. Now if you happen to have seen the test on the switch that we didn't replace the lights in, you don't get a dead short because the resistance of the light bulbs. But these LEDs don't give any resistance and you do get a dead short. Passenger side, okay, that's a fail. Let's see what's going on. Alright, let's see about the passenger side down. Okay, neither one of those worked. So let's go back to the driver's side. So we know our meter's still working and all our connections are good. Let's go to the passenger side again. Okay, now that worked. Passenger side down. Okay, just one more time just to make sure. Okay. Okay, we've got a working switch. Everything's back together. We've got new lights. We tested the new lights. We know that they work. This one is ready to go back in the car. I'll clean this up a little bit and send it back to my client.